Hey, welcome inside the Fox Weather ROWI Report. We got week 9 of NFL football. That means we are officially halfway through the season, 18 weeks. We're at week 9, and we actually have some good weather ahead for majority of these games. We're going to dive into those crucial matchups in the NFL, and we'll dive into some of the big stories that we are talking about on the Fox Weather stream. One big story that we had from over the weekend impacting South Florida. They actually had a flash flood emergency in South Florida, and we start looking at areas along the Space Coast. So that's going to be in between where you have Jacksonville and the Miami Dolphins play. Along that I-95 corridor, 16 inches of rain in just 2 days alone. So the big question with that is there going to be another active cycle for these areas, especially since we're looking at Thursday night football? Here is the big broad setup for the next several days ahead, getting us all the way through Halloween. So that does include Thursday night football. You'll notice there's a low pressure triggering a severe weather threat in the Gulf Coast. That's going to be on Tuesday. That's when we're recording this podcast well in advance, but it continues to march towards the east. The big question mark is, where is Thursday night football for this week? Well, it's all the way down in Miami Gardens, and this low is going to be well north of there. Now, the other big story, of course, on our stream is the historic, powerful Cat 5 Hurricane Melissa. That is going to be moving through the Caribbean and into the Bahamas and the Western Atlantic over the next several days, but it looks like we are protected by the jet stream, and that is going to stop any activity from getting here as we go down to Hard Rock Stadium. This is going to be Thursday night, 8:15 p.m. kickoff. Because of that jet stream and the dry air coming in, notice that we have a low risk of weather impact all across the board. Precipitation impact, wind, and temperature. Overall, you could not ask for better conditions this time of year. Looking at into the mid to lower 70s, stagnant conditions. The wind may be a little bit breezy at the start of kickoff. I don't think this is going to change the dynamic at all. I actually think the Ravens may roll in this one, and I'm saying that as a Dolphins fan. So it's painful to see that it looks like another week where it's going to be struggling there for the Dolphins in South Florida. Let's talk about some other games as we push towards the weekend. We talked about Halloween, right? That's on Friday, big weekend for a lot of people. We'll talk about some impacts on college football on Saturday. That's going to be for tomorrow's episode if you're tuning in. That's going to be Wednesday. But look at this. This is Friday. You get the low pressure that's moving through the Great Lakes. Then we have Melissa that's still out in the Atlantic as a Category 2. In between that, you do have a higher pressure gradient. You got a little instability along the I-95 corridor. This is Friday. So what happens as we get into Saturday, into the Sunday, of course, time frame for NFL football. Let's take it out towards Steel City, Acrisure Stadium, Pittsburgh, as you look at a dynamic setup. I mean, these are two teams into the season, probably had some big question marks, wondering, all right, what we're going to get. Colts dynamic. I mean, you're talking about Daniel Jones, not only comeback player of the year, I know he'll come back yet to actually be injured, but being on the Giants, that's comeback enough. And then looking at MVP status, then you're looking at Aaron Rodgers coming back alive as well for the Steelers. So this is going to be a dynamic matchup, and I don't think the weather is going to be a factor. These are two northern teams. So yes, you're looking at the temperatures, upper 40s, lower 50s. You do have some cloud cover. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff, and the winds are relatively light. And notice what direction they're derived out of. This is 10 to 5 miles an hour. It's all out of the south-southeast. So staying relatively quiet throughout this game here as well. Could be interesting to watch as we have two powerhouses that are battling each other. And then you got two injury-prone teams that are battling out in the next one. MetLife Stadium, East Rutherford, New Jersey, I should say. A New York team claiming to be, in New York, even though they're in New Jersey. I think the big, obviously talking piece of this is Scadaboo going down. How devastating that injury is. Obviously, he was the engine of that team along with Jackson Dart. So you're seeing if they can rebound and gain something out of this. San Francisco, they've had numerous injuries. Again, you now take to the field, and you got some guys that are coming back. Maybe have some injuries that are lingering. I don't think weather is going to be a question mark. The reason why I bring that up is because oftentimes when you have rain games and you have guys that are kind of questionable, right? Do we start them? Do we bring them back in? If you have an injury that's still kind of lingering, you don't want to put them out there on the field, right? Football is a violent game. Sadly, we saw that last week with Scadaboo. At any time, though, when you start to incorporate the slippery footing and the conditions there, trying to make those cuts, whether you're a running back, or receiver, or even a quarterback, that's where you can start looking at if you already have a pre-existing injury, that could get aggravated. So since we have dry conditions here, maybe maybe you're seeing a little bit more of action out of guys that would maybe sit if there was an active setup. So for the latter half of the work week, we are expecting some activity, and that does move into Halloween. By the weekend, though, clearing out, we'll be into the mid-50s. Double nickels here at kickoff, even by the end of the game, holding steady. Notice the wind direction out of this one as well. This is going to be out of the west, out of the start, then moving out of the south by the second half, and maybe even changing again. So even though the wind is relatively light, sustained winds at 10 miles an hour, that means gusts could be 15, if that possible, 20, but I think this is going to be relatively quiet. The direction of the wind changes, and so that may be a factor, especially for kicking. At this point, when you're looking at this kind of wind speed, that's not going to impact quarterbacks. They got cannons there. What you're looking at is those long field goals. We've talked about how NFL kickers, they've been impressive so far this year, how far they may be able to kick, but those 50-yard plus field goals, a little bit different when the wind speed starts to change direction as well. We're going to keep it up in the Northeast, Gillette Stadium, Foxborough. Again, two teams, I think, coming into the season, maybe had some big question marks. What are they going to do? Then you got Drake May there in, of course, New England, and a lot of people they're making the MVP chant as well. So exciting to see what could unfold here in just football terms. And again, stagnant conditions. This is a regional weather pattern that we're watching. This is a synoptic scale event where you're watching clearing skies and really a high pressure that kind of settles everything after all the activity at the end of the week. So with that being said, kickoff again, it's a lower mid 50s as you get into the end of the game, fourth quarter, maybe lower 50s. The wind speed here a little less. And holding consistent out of the south and southeast. So I don't think there's that fluctuation that you would have at MetLife, that you will have Gillette Stadium a little more consistent. Okay, again, Highmark Stadium, Orchard Park, New York. This is a fascinating game because, of course, you have two powerhouses. 4:25 kickoff. We did have some active weather, low pressures rolling through the Great Lakes. This time of year, you're starting to get to that question mark. The end of October is actually when lake effect snow season starts to kick back up. And we know Bills Mafia, if there's big snow coming off of Lake Erie, you're asking the crew to come out, let's shovel the stands. That ain't happening here. I mean, if anything, we'd have lake effect rain a day or two ahead of this, and that's about it. I mean, look at these temperatures. Not only is it on land very warm, I mean, we are well above freezing into the mid 40s, but even the lake temperatures, and Lake Erie especially, running well above average. They're into the lower 60s right now. So a lot of warmth leading up to this, and so this game is nice and calm. Just like we've talked about with everything else, the wind direction a little bit different, this one out of the southwest, so that does kind of put in a factor maybe of an element coming off of Lake Erie. But again, I think that only builds cloud cover, overcast conditions for the Bills and the Chiefs. But how vastly different this could be year to year. I mean, end of October, this could have been a snow game easily. And a snow bowl, thankfully, for this matchup, it's going to be relatively calm. So we're going to continue on with not only the Northeast. Here's the Mid-Atlantic. We're taking it to FedEx Field. This is Landover, Maryland, as the Commanders are going to be hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Another good matchup, low risk of weather impact. I mean, this is like a non-factor in this one, almost flirting with a zero, because not only are the temperatures consistent, skies relatively clear for the most part. I mean, the wind is so low on this aspect. The other games we talked about, the breeze, maybe even a directional change. This is changing nothing. So, by the way, when you're looking at this early outlook, we do this because not only are you a fan of the game, but maybe you put a little bit of money on it, right? I think this now starts talking about if you were feeling a little emboldened by some of the overs, I don't think you're seeing the limitation of the weather. We've talked in the past about weeks prior where you have some bigger factors like a big wind event or a rain event where you start looking at, say, okay, the under on this looks a little bit better. Maybe I like the limitation of, the completions, and maybe I'm going to go a little run heavy strategy for whatever you're going to be betting if you feel comfortable with that. I think for this weekend, what we're setting up is it's wide open. So if you're feeling confident on a team and the momentum, and if you were worried and you're checking in with us and you're saying, okay, is there a weather factor in this that I should be concerned about for NFL? So far, we are looking clear as of right now. So go with your gut. As we take it now a little bit back towards the Ohio Valley region, this is Paycor Stadium, Cincinnati. The Bengals, they're going to be hosting the Bears. This is actually a fun matchup to watch. I think the revival that we're seeing with the Bengals, Joe Flacco, coming back, looking good, taking on, Caleb Williams and the Bears. They've been looking solid this year too. This is a 1 p.m. kickoff. I mean, can you get more consistent with the air temperature? I mean, middle 50s, double nickels yet again. very slow wind, low wind, 5 miles per hour. And by the way, this is coming out of the south and southwest, so this is not setting up off the lake at all. Not that it would matter anyways, because Cincinnati really doesn't get too much of a lake influence, but if it was a bigger scale event, you could maybe see that. This relatively quiet. And this is going to be a good game, again, for just classic football, what's setting up. So looking at the Midwest, I did want to show you that early in the week, you will get some active weather. So if you're listening to this podcast on the Tuesday night when this airs or early in the week, and notice the timestamp here, if you're watching, this is 10 a.m., you're starting to look at this and you're saying, wait a minute, like I'm getting a lot of rain. You sure this isn't going to carry on? I wanted to play this out. This is 2 p.m. on Thursday, and it's already working its way up through Ohio, where we are just checking in with Cincinnati in those spots out towards Buffalo. And this is through Thursday morning, right? And this is the amount of rain that we're expecting, 1 to 2 inches widespread. Maybe some spots in the Appalachians that get a little bit higher, but that's far out from Charlotte and these other spots that we'll visit now to show you that there will be active weather yet again, as we talk about during the work week, but that does not carry over into the weekend. So let's talk more about the Midwest. Here's Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, a 1 p.m. kickoff. Like I said about Orchard Park with the Chiefs and the Bills, this could be a vastly different game year to year. End of the October, and you're getting this into the middle portion of the season, you could have a nasty low that's coming through the Great Lakes. That kicks up not only the brutal wind conditions, but also some snow. This week, not happening, right? We're looking at quiet conditions ahead. Winds derived out of the south, so you know that there's no frontal boundary coming through. If there's a frontal boundary coming through, likely to come out of the west or the northwest for these areas of Wisconsin. So this is going to be actually building in a little bit of warmth for Lambeau. This is actually a good sign. You're looking at temperatures into the upper 40s, lower 50s. I didn't even think for the Carolina Panthers, like this is the time of year when maybe you start indexing a little bit more on the temperature impacts because the winter elements. I mean, this is warm. This is mild. Like I don't even think the Panthers, of course, are going to be influenced by this at all when you're talking about those type of temperatures. As we go out towards Nissan Stadium, Nashville, Tennessee, this is Sunday at 1 p.m. This would be a game if it was Thursday night. I would talk about, okay, watch this closely. We got that low that's moving through. Maybe there's some activity, but by Thursday, it's already clearing out in these areas. And that means by Sunday, when you actually have kickoff at Nissan Stadium at 1 p.m., you're looking at great conditions ahead. So really precipitation impact limited. Wind has been a factor in all of this. When you're looking at the wind speed right around 10 miles an hour, that's where you could have the gusts around 15, and you start looking at those long kicks. So again, if you are betting or if you have a fantasy football and you interchange your kicker each week and you're trying to think about, okay, who's going to be having the best opportunity for a long ball opportunity, these games this week, there is no real favoritism because, again, that wind doesn't could become a big enough factor to influence whether you're going into the wind to stop it from going for a big kick, or if it's in behind you, really influencing, okay, maybe we should be trying to go for a 60-plus yard field goal. So overall, what we're talking about is a low risk of weather impact. We have favorable conditions ahead. Now, we air multiple podcasts per week. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, we do podcasts that'll go to whatever platform you're listening to at 5 p.m. Then on Thursdays, we encourage you to jump over to the stream. We do a Fox Weather tailgate. We have a lot of fun outside on Fox Plaza. We play games, we eat a bunch of good food, and we give you updates on these forecasts. Now, for this week, for NFL, doesn't look like much of an influence. For college football, there may be a little more influence, especially when we start talking about the Pac Northwest and an atmospheric river that could be setting up later in the week. So we'll have some of those updates there. And then on Friday, usually we do a bonus episode. That means you reach out to us. You tell us, hey, what topics you want us to talk about. If there's something else, maybe you want to look at playoff baseball, right? We're talking about World Series, and it's been incredible what we have been seeing so far. Will there be an impact later on in the week? I mean, we're talking about Toronto. There is that low that's moving through in the Great Lakes. Is there that type of influence? If you got interest, reach out to us at Fox Weather or at Weather Bender on any of your social media platforms, and we will answer those questions, and we'll bring it to the pod for a bonus episode. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Be weather safe, and see you on the next pod.